Well, howdy ho there, everybody. How are we doing today? Hopefully, you're all doing absolutely peachy keen fantastic. Hopefully, you're all full of the love of the Lord today. And I hope that you're all having an absolutely wonderful day. And today, I was just going to talk a little bit about how engaging in service and helping others helps us get closer to God. You see, there's a lot of wisdom out there, and you can learn a lot about different philosophies and different spiritual approaches. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm a little noise. There's a lot of different spiritual philosophies and things out there, and there's something where you can understand something on an intellectual level, but it won't necessarily feel like the greatest reality to you, and you won't be able, and maybe not able to live in it every moment by just knowing something. Sometimes you have to work and get to a place where you can feel the love of God and feel the love of the Lord and feel that oneness with all beings. It doesn't necessarily come, just because you say, okay, I understand that we are all one, that we are all together, and that this is all, part and parcel of the same reality. And this is all part and parcel of, that same divine consciousness which spreads through all things. You may understand that intellectually, but it can take a lot of work to really get to a point where you feel that and feel that connectedness to other beings. And one of the things that you have to do is that you have to engage in a variety of things. You need wisdom, but you also need service, and you also need the ability to endure and understand these things. Part of the reason that in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna keeps telling us to give up our actions and give up the results of our actions to God, and give up all these things to God, is because we need to turn every part of our life, every part of the life that we live, into the subject of service. We're trying to turn everything into service for the God, service for Lord. Service for the Divine Mother, whatever aspect we're focusing on. We're trying to turn all these things into service for this, and we're trying to abandon the fruits of our own actions, and we're trying to embrace this greater truth that will help us kind of go through our lives and understand these things. And we need the ability to purify ourselves, and sometimes the easiest way to purify yourself over time is to simply go out and do service for others, help people who are in need, give of the fruits of your action, do things like that. But sometimes you're also going to want to, engage in spiritual practice. Spiritual practice is also very good for this, where you will, pray to God every day, or you pray for wisdom and for understanding every day, and you pray that you can come to understand your place in all this, in your place, within this grander scheme, with everything that's going on around you. And you're trying to increase your devotion, like part of the reason people end up going so often for bhakti, which is, a word for the divine love, or the divine, or like a devotional service to a deity, is that you're trying to feel that love within yourself. There are various different paths. Like there's the path of knowledge, where you really study and reflect and focus on the Lord, and focus on the different things going on within your experience of the Lord, and within everyone's experience of the Lord. And then there's also like Raja Yoga, which is like meditation, like calming the mind and stilling the mind, so that it's so that you can experience the Lord in a better way by having that experience and being able to focus on things around you. And that one can be very helpful. Now, meditation doesn't always start out the easiest. It will take time, but as you progress on the path, and especially if you're willing to put a good amount of effort into it, you can really get surprisingly far with that, and get to a point that you might not have expected yourself to get to. And you can even see that there are hardships that you can kind of just see as they are, and see as they arise, this phenomenon arising, and things like that. But what you're really trying to do is you're trying to embrace God, and you're trying to sort of understand what the world really is. You need that wisdom, that understanding of what God is and what you are and how you are connected to all these different beings and what it means to be connected to all these different beings. And by taking these moments where you kind of, step back and let some of this stuff happen, or, like with meditation, you can sit there and experience these things without, clinging on to them and things like that. There are so many different paths that you can take. And I personally favor bhakti a lot. I think that loving devotional service and getting is like one of the best ways to get close to God, because by focusing on the Lord in your every interaction, you can really um, have these wonderful moments where that can really like stick in your heart. But to the foundation of all these different things, foundation of all spiritual development is, practice and wisdom. You need to not just understand what you're trying to achieve, not just understand intellectually the nature of things around you or the nature of the universe or the nature of God and all this. You also need to be willing to do these practices. It's not enough to just say, "Oh yes, I have faith and I love God." You need to be doing things to demonstrate that love and to grow that love. You need to be doing things that show you doing proper worship, and also making sure that it sticks with you no matter what's going on, because there are always things that the world is going to be kind of throwing towards you and kind of giving you that you're going to want to react to. But ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to give up those reactions and you're trying to dwell on the Lord, because in every moment the Lord is still there. No matter what's going on around you, God is still there with you. And when it's the good, it's consciousness represented as the good. When it's the bad, it's consciousness represented as the bad. God is within all things, right? So you can't just abandon these things. You have to understand that they are there and they are all part of this greater divinity. And that you have the ability to find peace within yourself. And that's really where a lot of the importance comes from. Now, of course, this is the way we have to engage in service. All these different things that we want, and we want to have this greater relationship with God. We want to, have more peace of mind. We want to be able to engage with the world and still feel at peace. That's part of the reason we engage in the service. By engaging in service and giving up our actions and helping those around us, we're actually strengthening our spiritual fortitude, and we're making it so that we're getting better and better at being able to interact with the world and also interact and do things that are pleasing to the Lord and do things that are going to be pleasing to ourselves. Ultimately, we're trying to defeat these sort of negative habits and these things that kind of hold us back. And part of that is by doing, selfless service, by giving up like the primacy of ourselves to these higher callings. That's kind of like what religion and like groups are actually all about. Ultimately, is giving up these parts of ourselves to a higher calling so that we can benefit and grow, so that we can become part of a greater whole, or at least feel like we're part of a greater whole, because we're always part of a greater whole, but really feel that and be able to engage with that every day and engage with that in ways that are, pleasing to God and pleasing overall. We need to be able to uh, give up things so that we can get further on the spiritual path, because all the spiritual paths require at least some kind of renunciation. It's not just like you can do exactly the same thing that you're doing right now with no issues. You're always going to have to give up a little bit of something. Now, how severe that something is going to be can really depend. Sometimes it's like you have to give up like maybe to give up drinking if you're like someone who really likes to drink, or maybe you have to give up the like pleasures of sex if you're trying to be like more like monk like, or whatever you're trying to give up. But there is renunciation no matter what spiritual path you go on to. But that renunciation, that little initial price you pay unlocks these much higher truths and unlocks these much grander paths that can really benefit you spiritually and really benefit you in your life and really bring a lot of pleasure to your life in a new way, because you see the pleasure of dwelling on the divine and the pleasure of being with the divine is so much greater than the pleasure of the flesh or anything like that. By truly engaging with the Lord on every level and truly seeking out the Lord and giving up those things that you kind of keep to, like these little habits that we all have, by giving these things up, and also by giving up the fruits of our actions, we're growing close to the Lord, because we're offering these little things that ultimately show that we're not just interested in this world, we're interested in getting closer to God. They frequently say, I think it was Ramakrishna who said that the mother, the divine mother, is like a real mother. While we're playing with our toys, she's perfectly fine to let us play with our toys and be content. But if we start crying for mother and we really want mother, she's going to come to us and pick us up and love on us. And the divine mother is always loving, the divine mother is always giving out love to people. But when we give up the toys of this world, when we give up these simple material pleasures and really strive for the greater pleasure, which is the pleasure of divine communion and the love of God, we find that there is something much greater there, that there is something that is far superior to any simple material pleasure we could engage in. And by engaging in this much greater pleasure, we can really find ourselves in a much better spot and find ourselves in a spot that will really help us out. And that's really what's so important. Like, we want to give up these things, and you want to sort of bathe your spirit, let your entire spirit be full of the love of God. Let everything be constantly calling out to the Lord. Let yourself always be, thinking on the Lord no matter what's going on around you. Always be coming back to the Lord, and always be coming back and trying to, worship at the feet of the Lord, and always be trying to give yourself over to the Lord. Like part of the reason you want to engage in thinking about God all the time is, sometimes, for instance, in Hindu circles, they'll use images of God, and they'll go through these mental processes of worshiping God as the image and giving God a set of flowers, like hanging a garland of flowers around the neck of the Lord, bathing the Lord, all these things in their head. And you're supposed to do these things with love and let love carry you through, because all of this can just become mechanical practice. But with love, it doesn't become mechanical practice. It's one of the great things. The real secret for so much of this is, giving yourself over to love and giving yourself over to this thing that you can't really control, and understand that, God has all these things that you can engage with and that will bring you closer. Give yourself up to the Lord. Don't just sit there and, just do the mechanical practice. No, do these practices so that you can engage with the Lord. Sacrifice the little pleasures of life so that you can get closer to the Lord. Sacrifice little things and engage in service to everyone so that you can truly get close to the Lord. Not a mean Jimmy Dean? Okie dokie, that's just what I want to talk about today. Well, anyway, I hope that you'll have an absolutely wonderful one. And completely unrelated, Malakai Makaisson is one of my favorite characters. I really like Malakai Makaisson. He's really fun in the Gotrek and Felix books, and I really liked playing dwarves. I haven't played dwarves in ages. They were actually my first army of Warhammer, and I'm kind of really glad I came back to them for a little bit. Anyway, I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful one. I hope you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye-bye, I love you, bye, and always be seeking to get closer to God, okay? Okay, bye, I love you, bye.